Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Infodumping. I am Zach. I am the creator of Hyperanalysis Studios, and today we have with me the Almighty Chazzle.
That's me. How's it going?
So what exactly do you do? You're primarily a streamer?
I do streaming. I do mostly gaming shit. I just like to, make videos, have fun. Good luck. Have fun, if you will. Just normal shitty gaming content.
It's a great show of confidence for your channel. Right out the gate. So you're primarily you do a lot of comedy and a lot of comedic focus on your videos, yes?
Yeah, I try to be funny sometimes. Sometimes it turns a little too cringy. Sometimes it's too offensive. So good stuff.
What would you say is how would you classify your type of humor personally?
Recently when I was making a stream highlight video, I try to add a little bit of what I like to call like Adult Swim humor. I like it to be kind of dark, sometimes kind of offensive, but at the same time I'm gonna put like normal stuff that I think is funny. So usually when I make a video, it's like what I laugh at, and I try to put it in there, which I think pretty much everyone should do most of the time. So that's about it.
Yeah, that's a very understandable take on comedy. I feel like on some level that's what a lot of people do, because it's really hard to judge what standards. It's hard to judge things on a standard of comedy that you don't have.
Yeah, and when I try to do like the dark humor, it's more because, well, one, I find it funny, and two, I feel like most gaming channels out there want to be too politically correct, and I don't really want to do that. I want to be myself, and I'm not always politically correct like everyone else tries to be. So,
would you say that being politically correct is a positive trait, or like is it overall harmful? How would you classify that in terms of people being personalities on YouTube?
I think it depends on their personality in general. If they want to be politically correct and it works out for them while they're not being fake, like if they're actually kind of politically correct, that's fine. I understand why people don't want to push boundaries. But most of the time I feel like, those people are the same people who, for example, PewDiePie. Good channel. I mean, he seems like an okay dude, I guess. He said the N-word on stream and whatnot. But I feel like most of the time, mostly in his old videos, you could see he was trying to be politically correct. Now, he doesn't really try to do that. And of course, saying the N-word is definitely a big, kind of too much. Yeah, it's a big no-no. And but I feel like he's in terms of his videos back then, they used to be, very, very politically correct and stuff like that. And there's other channels that used to be like that too, like Tobuscus and stuff, which of course he's fallen off the face of the map and stuff. But
I haven't heard much about him in a long time. Though it's pretty understandable from what I last heard, but I don't want to get into the details of that right now. That gets a little
a little dark there.
I feel like for a channel like PewDiePie, where they start out very politically correct, very family friendly, very wholesome and whatnot, and then over time, as the person grows, as the channel grows, as the brand changes, there's this sort of inherent risk and almost fear attached to drifting away from that family-friendly kind of label that they once had. And we've seen a lot of YouTube personalities that are drifting away from that idea. But my personal fear with that kind of stuff is that when you set up the expectation of there being something family friendly about your channel, it ends up being such a huge whiplash when you change to, what your preferred brand of comedy might be. Do you have any specific thoughts on that kind of process? Do you agree with me, or?
I think normally when that stuff happens, yeah, you look at like PewDiePie. Of course, when he did it, he was bigger. You don't see many small channels doing it now because when you're at the start, you can reach a bigger audience if you're more politically correct. So that's what I think he was going for, and I think that's what a lot of YouTubers try to do. But I feel like now it's getting more popular to be less politically correct because you got to think back, like YouTube started in like 2005, 2006. And since then, I mean, most humor and television shows and movies have kind of evolved to where they don't have to be politically correct as much and stuff like that. So I think that's, with people growing up with stuff like that, that kind of changes their thought process. So like I said, I like Adult Swim. I like watching Eric Andre show, stuff like that, which humor is greatly over the top. And back then they didn't have stuff like that really.
What would you say is, because you've mentioned Adult Swim a couple times now, and now with Eric Andre, who would you say are your biggest inspirations for the type of videos that you like to make?
In terms of like on YouTube, I really haven't watched much YouTube lately. But when I started out, the biggest ones were probably the Creatures. Before they started, they went defunct. It was about a group of like 5-6 gamers, and when I watched them, I was like, I want to do that. They had this big house where all of them lived, and I was like, that looks like so much fun. I want to do it. I started YouTube probably 6 years ago, I think, 2011. So and then I switched channels, I think only once, but yeah. So they were a big one. I'm trying to think of some other people. Probably. I watched a little bit of CNNers back then and stuff of the like. And in terms of like TV and stuff, I think the only one really was Eric Andre and Adult Swim type stuff.
So you do definitely lean more towards the kind of personality aspect. I know there's a lot of at least back when Let's Play started first being a big thing, there was a large part of the market that was about just trying to, enjoy a game or get an idea of what a game was like. And the person involved was almost like, a shepherd in that process. But now it's kind of changed to be more on like a personality side of things where you don't necessarily go to watch the game, you go to watch the people, and the game is just kind of noise in the background. Would you say you lean closer to that kind of thing or the first type in what you take inspiration from or in what you do personally?
I think personality definitely has a big thing to do with it. I like seeing people I think are funny, people that I could see like, because when you're watching a video, it's like you kind of connect with the person most of the time, and not just gaming and like other stuff too, like vlogs and whatnot. So I like to see someone I think would be fun to hang with and fun to listen to and stuff, especially when it comes to the group videos and stuff like CNNers, as I said, and what's his name? Vanas. When they get that big group together that looks like fun, it's like, I like these guys. I wonder what it would be like to hang out with them. So, spend 10 minutes, watch the video, and they make me laugh.
Would you say you get almost like a personal connection to these creators?
I think the more videos you watch, you for sure do. Like I said, the Creatures were probably my favorite growing up. Which is, it's weird to say that YouTube's been around that long, that they've had an effect on me growing up. But back then, yeah, it was just, I love their content, their gaming stuff, but mostly the thing that I found myself enjoying the most was like their in real life videos where you get to see, they did a house tour and stuff like that, where you kind of get to see their personalities even more and stuff like that. So yeah, personality definitely has a big thing to do with it. I remember actually when they, quit, it was kind of like, it kind of hurt, it's like someone died, if that makes sense, because it's a channel I grew to love and I grew with, and they're gone, So yeah, it definitely has a big impact.
Well, I know with a lot of people, certainly not everybody, but there are a good number of people who get a sort of personal connection with YouTube personalities, because it is a very personal thing. Like there's not as much of a disconnect, as something we see with, like, you watch a TV show, and there's like several layers of disconnect between you and the personal life of the actors. But in YouTube, it's a much more personal process. It's a very thin line between, you actually being a part of their life. Do you have any thoughts about the type of people that, like, when they do meet these YouTube creators at like something like VidCon or other big conventions, they treat them as if they're like super close friends, even though, one side only really knows the other, and it's not a mutual thing? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think it's pretty admirable that some YouTubers do that. I would hope, if for whatever reason I actually did get some subscribers and stuff like that, that I would be like that. I'm not sure if I could, but I would try my best, because most of the time, like, when you look at videos and stuff on people's channel, you'll see comments that just seem, kind of over the top, and it's like, dial it back a little bit, and it's like, I don't know how to explain it. These people, they just kind of act like they know them, like, right off. It's like, you don't actually know who they are. You may see them through videos, but you don't know other stuff they do. You just see the videos and their in real life stuff, and you're like, okay, I know who they are. But yeah, I think YouTubers who do that, it's great to see. But you also understand that they know that those people got them there. They're the reason why they can go to VidCon and have fun, and sometimes make YouTube, their livelihood. Is like it's like they're living a dream, and so yeah, I mean, they're your fans. You just gotta take it for the most part.
All right. What would you say you value most in a YouTube video?
I'd probably admire. I like editing. I like stuff like that. I like seeing people make videos that they probably at the top is videos they put their heart into. Videos that you can feel their personality, but you can also feel, like, in editing and stuff like that, you can feel their personal touch on. Like, it's something they enjoyed making and they laugh at. I think that's probably the most important. And like I said, with most politically correct ones, you don't really see that. You just see, okay, I'm going to edit this so people enjoy. I'm going to not be myself. But I feel like nowadays you kind of need to have your personality show to actually grow.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an understandable position. I think there's a lot of people out there that really they want a certain level of uniqueness or a certain level of, I guess the best word would be almost honesty from a video creator, where it's, we're so used to, growing up, like, on TV, like, it's all this stuff that inherently feels almost synthetic, and it's great. You can watch shows and have deep connections to characters, and it could be very, powerful, but there's this very kind of, like, it's fake, it's not really happening, this stuff is just, it's just the, people in front of cameras, and that is, like, when you grow up with that, initially you'll think, like, oh, that's just how this stuff feels like. You don't really think about it. And then we all get introduced to a newer idea of videos and video making that didn't have that synthetic feel to it. They didn't have that kind of disconnect to it. And I feel like a lot of people, now that they realize that there is something more unique, that there is something more honest, they kind of crave that more because they've been missing it for so long.
I think that, like, when you look at, like, 90s, like you see in TVs and movies, if you look at, like, 90s TV shows, you got stuff like Seinfeld and Friends, like, shows with laugh tracks. And, I mean, realism, I mean, it was a thing back then, but it wasn't really as big as it is in today's TV shows and movies. Like, they want to be realistic. They want to have the impression of being realistic. They want to be themselves, basically. They want to show a character that someone can relate to. And when you're on YouTube, being synthetic, it's not the same as YouTubers that actually are just being themselves. And so, I mean, sometimes it kind of seems like, maybe they're not high energy. Maybe they're not getting a ton of people to click on their stuff because they're not politically correct. I'm thinking like someone like Critical. He's another gaming YouTuber. He doesn't really do thumbnails or anything like that, and he's just himself, it's super admirable.
Yeah, that's definitely true. An interesting thing about you mentioned laugh tracks. And it the idea of laugh tracks and how they're used today, or even how they were used in the 90s, is almost like a microcosm of this effect, because laugh tracks all of them were originally recorded in the 40s, the 50s, something like that. There was a specific show that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. I'm sure some visual about it will pop up now. But it was filmed in front of a live audience, and they did incredibly crazily timed stunts. And it seemed simple at first, but they had like toasters, and then they would shoot the toasted bread out, and then another actor would catch it, and they would catch it every single time when it would shoot like in different ways, and something you can't really plan for, and they would always get it. And it's like these are things that, like, when you look at it in the moment, it's interesting, but when you think about it, it's crazy. And the laugh tracks are all from like that one show, because they were really authentic. And that's where those that's where that laughter came from. And now it's used in these like the Big Bang Theory is the easiest thing. Yeah. It's like, it's completely like if you take away, a lot of people have done this. If you take away the laugh track from a Big Bang Theory episode, it's like soul crushingly awkward. It's so difficult to watch. Because there's nothing there. There's nothing authentic there, and it's like padded with all of this fake stuff that's trying to look authentic. And so it's like that in itself is almost like this very idea in microcosm, and it's very fascinating to think about.
Yeah, I think like when you go to shows like The Big Bang Theory and stuff, I get it. I get why people like it. It's kind of a way to escape reality and stuff for 30 minutes or an hour. But sometimes I like to watch something realistic. I like to feel like I'm there, like I can relate to this person. And really, YouTube, it's definitely become a bigger thing. People being themselves and whatnot. I mean, you still got all those Viners that came over now that are like, oh, I'll just be as fake as possible and make clickbait videos. But for the most part, yeah, realism is definitely, big. It's probably the most important thing on YouTube.
Well, even those Viners, like 90% of them have like completely lost their careers and they switched to YouTube. And even ones that I legitimately enjoyed, like, consistently, they just completely flopped because they couldn't fully understand the medium. And it just did not work out for them. And has it been like a year now since Vine has gone down? I don't think a full year. Maybe it's only been like 6-7 months. Yeah. But it's been a bit. And so, like, in the wake of Vine shutting down, a lot of them have tried and then failed to do something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to carry over their medium, and I respect that. But when you put "gone sexual" like on your video, stuff like that, "gone sexual," not clickbait. It's like, okay, like from that point, I can tell they're fake. Something that really concerns me, though, is like when I grew up, YouTube, the fake personalities, I feel, were less, and they weren't really as terrible as they are now. So what concerns me is there's kids growing up watching some channels that are like pretty questionable, in my opinion, and it's going to be interesting. I'm not going to say some of them by name, like Rice Gum, but I'm going to say that one.
Oh, you can even just talk about all of the Spider-Man Elsa channels, and then that's got you covered on an entire generation of kids for this point.
And it's like that one, it's the parents, because they don't know any better. I don't even understand why that is a thing. It's just so weird seeing people, and it's I believe they found out that it was a prank channel. I was watching H3 Productions
Yeah,
And
one of the Spider-Man Elsa channels was the Ethan Bradbury and his
yeah,
brother Mo
Ock
Bradbury,
Ock TV, and
Ock
it's like,
TV, and a couple other channels. I can't remember their names. They were all prank channels, and then they became the Spider-Man Elsa stuff, and they got tens of millions of views.
yeah,
Which is, how does that even happen?
and that's like my least favorite thing on YouTube, because you know that they're just doing something to go viral. They don't care about their content. They don't care about how they're portrayed. They just want money, and that's kind of ridiculous seeing people like that actually succeed, drive Lamborghinis. But the good news is they'll probably go bankrupt in like 10 years because they're probably horrible with money.
Yeah.
So they got that.
They've got a lot of knowledge, but they don't got anything.
Yeah, no. Ty Lopez, he's got a bunch of knowledge up here. That's why he's succeeding in real life. I don't think they have the knowledge really, but
no, not at all. Well, so if we go back a bit to the authenticity stuff, an interesting kind of comparison that comes to mind is YouTube does have a lot of, fake creators, as we've been talking about. But, a good majority of them are being more honest, are being more authentic. But if you look at like a creation platform, we talked about you being a streamer. Like Twitch is something that I would feel would be much higher on that kind of authenticity level. Do you find that that's true, or is that a different story?
I feel like, yeah, you can. I mean, basically, because you're not editing your content, you're just going for 2 hours or 3 hours, and people can actually see and hear you the whole time. Otherwise, in a video, you cut it down to like 5-10 minutes out of like 30 or an hour or something like that. So, people can grasp who you are. And I think that's why I think Twitch is actually great. I think it's a good, I'm going to say compliment to YouTube, but I can see why people do Twitch and then YouTube. But I think they go pretty well hand in hand. Like, you can make content that people find funny, and then you can make on Twitch some content that people feel like they can connect with you personally more, especially with my content, even though, once again, don't have that big of a following. But on YouTube, I can make a video that I think's funny and a good time, and it may, because it's funny moments, it's probably not gonna let you connect with me personally that much. But then I go over to Twitch, I can talk to some people who come in, I can ask them how their day was, what's going on, stuff like that. And I feel like that's kind of why they complement each other so well.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing, because a lot of YouTube creators feel like they're stuck on YouTube, and it's like a practical monopoly. Like, that's very much true. But I feel like a lot of people, this is true for people in general, not just YouTubers, but a lot of people kind of stick themselves in like, oh, this is the thing I do, and this is the only thing I do, and if I don't do this, I'm doing something wrong, or some other similar thought process. And I feel like while there are a lot of YouTubers that do either Twitch on the side or Twitch as a main and YouTube on the side or something like that, there's a lot of YouTubers that are very set in the one thing that they do. And I feel like that mindset of not being willing to kind of reach out or expand the stuff that you do is it shouldn't be a death sentence, because you should be able to build a career on YouTube, but it's not a smart way to look at the business field of YouTube right now. And I feel like a lot more people should embrace various different other types of video making, because it's not just making YouTube videos. There's other options out there, and I feel like acknowledging that and being able to expand into that is always very important.
Yeah, and I feel like, even if you can't go to Twitch, let's say you're a vlog channel making those gun sexual videos I've been talking about, and you're not going to probably stream games. Maybe you're not into video games. The least you could do is, get on social media, be yourself on there, stuff like Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. That all helps. That all helps people connect.
Well, they've got a good place on Instagram.
Oh yeah, Instagram too. And really, you just got to find a way to be yourself at least somewhere, because not all streamers or not all YouTubers that I enjoy are actually themselves. They're kind of ridiculous personalities. Someone like iDubbbz, I know he's not really that character, or someone like Filthy Frank, who recently started doing other stuff. He's not like that. He's just doing a funny personality, but in other stuff you can connect with them and you can see who they are.
Yeah, like even though Filthy Frank and Joji are created by the same person, or done by the same person, they're not the same person. Like that's an important thing to keep in mind for stuff like that. They're different people, even though it's like the same person playing both the roles.
Yeah, they're different people in one mind. Like maybe when he's doing Filthy Frank, that's one of his. That's part of his personality. It's not his whole personality. He doesn't really act like that all the time. And he's I don't know how to explain it. He's over dramatizing it. He's not. It's probably something in his head that he's thinking about and enjoying making, but it's not really over the top like that. Whereas in his music, recently he dropped that EP and stuff. You can kind of see how he feels in like music and stuff better, because music's a great medium to kind of express yourself if you're willing to give it a chance.
Yeah, definitely. And as this whole episode's pretty much being themed by authenticity, would you say that would also extend to created personalities, like a personality that somebody creates that's not inherently who they are, but has become so detailed and created that it becomes its own thing? Would you say that would also, like, could that also help people like get that kind of authentic vibe that they get from 100% authentic people?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like I said, I feel like when you're doing those personalities, it's still something that's a part of you. You can still tell and feel when someone's making that personality that they, one, think it's funny and enjoy it, and it's kind of, realistic to what they feel, I guess, if that makes sense. It's something that they think, is funny to them. It's realistic to their humor and whatnot. You see those other channels that, don't have that. Some don't, some do. But, you really you kind of got to find a balance with characters like that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I feel like there's a lot of potential of people getting too enthralled by this kind of fake creation. I've seen that secondhand with people who follow Filthy Frank. And this is, of course, not everybody, but there's a subset of people who follow Filthy Frank, which is primarily almost like a satirical retort on how fucking crazy people on the internet can get. But there's a lot of people who 100% like follow what he says unironically, and I have bits that I agree with, even though it is a more satirical bent on the internet. But there's some people out there who are that level of person and are influenced in various ways because of Filthy Frank. They're kind of allowing themselves to be more like that person. Do you have any thoughts about that kind of process or anything like that?
Well, first off, Jesus Christ, dude, you are one hell of an interviewer. You need to make more podcasts after this. But yeah, with stuff like that, you got these. If you look at like movies and stuff, there's some movies that can be just over the top ridiculousness. but the best ones are over the top and ridiculous and have kind of a meaning, kind of a point, you know, something that connects. Like Filthy Frankie said, the YouTube, you know, the average YouTube, not the average, I guess. Well, yeah, okay, actually, the average YouTube commenter and stuff like that, you know, you can kind of draw connections. So I feel like, I mean, it doesn't need to be that. Like, you can watch something that's ridiculous and laugh, and it doesn't have to have a point. But I feel like it makes it more poignant and, you know, just more understandable.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. There's certainly various comedic, you know, shows, YouTube videos, movies, etc. that I've enjoyed a lot more when, like, because every so often you have that kind of like moment that breaks the comedy. That's like, hey, this is the reality behind it, and it kind of shows you like this is what we've been kind of mirroring so far, and having those moments have always helped me enjoy various comedic things. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I some of the shit that Filthy Frank / George Miller / Joji did on fucking the Filthy Frank channel is so ridiculously disgusting that it's actually kind of art. I mean, the one that comes to mind is the fucking hair cake, or just the cake series in general, where he's eating goddamn hair, which honestly has dandruff in it. And the fact that he's willing to also take it to extremes like that kind of shows how realistic he is, and how, you know, he's willing to go the extra mile for his content, which is really respectable.
Those kind of videos, the cake videos, the Batsu games, the Gentleman's Challenge, those definitely key into a level of dedication that's really only possible because it relies on heavy amounts of Schadenfreude to really enjoy something like that, because it is just them suffering, and on a surface level it's funny to indulge, it's enjoyable to indulge in that Schadenfreude. But when you look, being like, because we both have made videos, it's easier to see kind of behind the curtain, and, you know, with the real effort some of this stuff takes, and the impact that it can have on you, and how difficult some things can be, and that also gives a whole new level of appreciation of, they put in so much effort to create something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to think of like, you know, like I said, sometimes it doesn't have a point. Sometimes it's just them suffering. And I mean, that's been popular for quite a while, like stuff like Jackass, which once again is fucking hysterical, mostly by how much pain or gross shit they do. And like normal people thinking, yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't ride a fire hose like a horse at a fucking dirt area and then scrape my ass up so bad that I have like 3rd-degree burns. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't eat a cake made of hair. That's really disgusting. But you laugh and you enjoy it because they're going to just such far extremes to entertain you. And I feel like that's actually very important.
Yeah, I feel like it focuses on a very core element of comedy in general, which is going to extremes. You know, you can't have, how do I phrase this properly? You can't have the best level of comedy without going into areas that might destroy you. Like,
yeah, like pushing boundaries. You got to push some boundaries, and maybe physically, or maybe, you know, with your humor in general, with like just the way you say things, you gotta push some kind of boundary, I feel, to really make your content stand out on YouTube and really anywhere, you know, like movies and stuff. You just gotta push boundaries in some way to make it actually stand out.
Yeah, because, you know, we have such a level of repetition in everything that goes on.
Yeah.
That, you know, in movies, TV shows, YouTube videos, etc., you have to create something unique. You have to create something new. You have to create something authentic to really break away from all of the stuff that we've seen before, everything that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at TV too, you got like 35 fucking cop shows that are just, oh, we'll make this character the rookie, and this character over here, they'll be the hardened veteran. But sometimes when you mess with shit and you try to make it original, like let's say there's a show that is kind of like a police procedural called iZombie, and why it stands out to me is because the main character is a zombie, kind of, and she's got to eat brains so she doesn't turn full zombie. That's an original concept. I'm going to remember that show over Law and Order 32 because, it's original. It's a weird idea, and I feel like on YouTube, weird ideas definitely stand out more because you got so much content to go through nowadays.
Yeah, and you don't even have to, like, if you want to kind of reach the, gigantic upper limits, then yeah, you have to go super duper far away from the norm. But if you want to just create something that's different, you don't have to go that far. Like a show, this is definitely like my favorite show, is also similar to like a police procedural. It's called Burn Notice. And the whole spin of the show is that it's following ex-spies. And the enjoyment out of it comes from each character talking about various situations that in other experiences would be very high action, very high drama, and they're talking about it like it's nothing. Like a great example is in the very first episode, throughout the entire series, the main character, Michael, he narrates over a lot of the stuff that he does. And he gets into a fight in a bathroom, and he says, the thing you have to worry about in a fight is breaking the little bones in your hand on somebody's face. This is why I like fighting in bathrooms. Lots of hard surfaces. And so it's not like engaged in the action of the fight. It's not like engaged in the drama of, oh, is he going to be fine? It's like, this is completely normal for him to the point where he's just, yeah, it's just, whatever. And
it's just another day of the office.
Yeah. And that idea is so entertaining to me that, like, I've seen that show more than 10 times, and it's 7 seasons long. And I'm rewatching it again, and I'm up to season 5, and I'm still as much in it as I was in the past because it's still a unique concept to me. Compared to everything else that's going on.
And I mean, well, first off, it doesn't hurt to have fucking Bruce Campbell in there cracking jokes right next to the Michael character. But like with Law and Order, to me, it's the same episode, in and out. It's just repeated, and so I get why people like it. I get why people keep watching it. It's because it's entertaining, I guess, to watch the same thing over and over again on repeat. But then I think about shows that I like, and most of them usually have a spin on a simple concept. Eric Andre's show is like a talk show, but it's fucking insane. You got Scrubs, which I'm a huge fan of.
Scrubs, I also enjoy Scrubs.
Yeah, it's like like a normal doctor show, except the characters are funny and they're not all serious all the time. But it can be serious. It can be a mix, and I feel like that's the best content on TV.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, like I said, you can make the same video over and over again with no artistic flourish, no little rose petals drizzled on it. But to me, that's not entertaining. I want to make something that's different every time, and I'm going to try to hopefully continue to do that, even though, of course, I do the most cliched thing on YouTube, which is gaming content, which is why, I've thought about branching out and doing other stuff, is because I want to do something I like and enjoy, and hopefully something more original.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about, like, evolving what you do over time is very important, and changing how you do things and changing how you approach things is very important. You see this with all the major brands going on right now, even PewDiePie, as we said. Like he changed in some very huge core ways, but a great kind of example, there's two main forms of evolution. One is the traditional form where you just kind of change how you do things over time and how everything is kind of put together as your personality changes, as your kind of image changes. But then there's kind of evolutions that don't really change anything. It's just kind of a new. It's a new lens on the same camera, and a great example of that is Epic Mealtime. Now,
he's kept the same concept. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, well, like you look back, 2010, 2011, 2012, Epic Mealtime, tens of millions of views, just boom, 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 hit after hit after hit after hit, and I still enjoy watching those older videos. But the issue that I have is, you look at a video that they post last week, and it's the same thing. Like they technically have different meals. They technically have, a rotating cast of people. They sometimes have guests. They sometimes have gimmicks that they do. But at the end of the day, it's the same video. It's them making a strange meal that has a lot of food, and then they eat it. And that's it. And that concept was original at first, but then it was like, there's not a lot of core to that. There's not a lot of deepness. I don't like saying deep. There's not a lot of substance to that kind of thing. There's not a lot you can kind of pick at once you get past the originality of it. So they've been going on for years and years and years, but they've never tried to do anything with more substance than that. And now you look at their videos and the stuff that, because they've been uploading consistently since then, but their most recent stuff, it doesn't get more than like 20,000, 30,000 views. They still have millions of people subscribed to them, but they have so few views on what they do comparatively.
Yeah.
Because they don't evolve in a way that actually provides more originality in what they do, and that's something you have to worry about, because the biggest balance of, you want to change, but you don't want to change too much to lose your audience, but you also don't want to stay the same, and finding the right place on that kind of scale for where you want to be is really, really important. And I think seeing both extremes is something that every creator should look out for.
Yeah, and with Epic Mealtime, I'm not sure if you've seen Fast Food Lasagna.
I have, yes.
The one with the burgers. That's what got me into them at the start. And you watch like 5 or 6 videos, like, this is great, but I mean, over the years they're at so many different videos that you start watching them now, and you're like, this is the same. And they definitely haven't evolved. They've had some. I mean, I still like all the people in there. I think they're hilarious and stuff, especially Harley. But they really haven't changed much. And for one, it's probably too late. It's probably too late for them to change I mean, what way can you go with a food channel? Maybe cook, I don't know, actual meals or something. But they tried to have their own shows and stuff. But I mean, especially with food channels, I feel like it's kind of hard, because it's like, well, now we've exhausted this idea so much, but at the same time, this is what our bread and butter is. This is what we started doing. This is the content that people enjoy us for. And it could just be, maybe they're scared to step out that boundary. Maybe they're scared to be like, okay, let's switch it up completely. Another channel that I really saw this with was like a Dude Perfect, but at the same time, they're actually super successful still. I mean, Epic Mealtime's still successful and whatnot, but Dude Perfect just does, to me, the same video every time, and people enjoy it. But who knows, maybe down the line, people will be like, this is the same thing. I've seen this 100 times. I'm not going to watch this one. and same thing could happen. So, I mean, it's definitely important to evolve your content, and also, I mean, maybe let people know who you are. I think those are two really big things, actually, to being kind of successful is, changing it up every once in a while.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you again for joining me. This was a fantastic time. I'm glad to have you over and whatnot.
Yeah. Please subscribe to Hyperanalysis Studios. Follow him on... You got Twitter?
Yeah, I have a personal Twitter. You can. There's going to be stuff on the screen now with social media for both me and Chazzle. We're gonna, you follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, like, comment, do all that stuff. Please let us know if you agreed or disagreed or had any thoughts on anything that we talked about today. I know it was a good amount, but I'm very interested to hear what your thoughts are.
Smash that motherfucking like button.
Yeah, please just smash it. Just
Can we get 200,000 likes in 2 seconds?
I would really appreciate it. Just like I appreciate every single one of you. And I'll see you guys next time.